Hi, I'm Mark DiTomaso. I want to tell you about my book, The X-Ray of a Spirit. I want to tell you about my life a little bit. But it won't make any sense unless I put it into some kind of current context that has some relevance to our lives that we're living in today. So let me be the one who says, I am terribly disappointed in Donald Trump. I'm also terribly disappointed in our political system. But let's be real. I think liberals get a bad rap because they're pretty much normal people who have good intentions and you know and the humility to speak their truth without relying on false bravado, on force, power, dominance. That seems to be you know the heart and soul of Donald Trump and his philosophy, the right wing philosophy towards American politics from their point of view, and I'm sick of it for one. So let's talk very specifically about the difference between that model of masculinity, and let me, for the sake of this video, represent a liberal form of mature masculinity, okay? I spent the last 10 plus years caring for my mother as her only round-the-clock caregiver through 5 serious conditions, including aneurysm, dementia, heart disease, kidney disease, all kinds of problems with her back, and depression. But that's my journey. But in this model of mature masculinity, that's what a loving man does. He steps up and faces the circumstances of his life, takes responsibility for those he cares for, to relieve their pain and bring them comfort. Donald Trump, on the other hand, spent his whole life caring only about himself. He's a malignant narcissist. And his model of masculinity is toxic, and our children are learning this, young men and young women are learning this, and we're internalizing it as okay, and it's not okay. Let's get real specific, okay? Donald Trump and I have 2 things in common. We're both men. And one uncomfortable fact. We've both been accused of sexual assault, but that's where the similarity ends. When I was accused, I did what any man with a conscience would do. I stood for my own truth. I stood trial in my own defense, and I spoke my truth. I treated the judge, the jury, the process, my accuser, and even those who doubted me with respect. Donald Trump, you get denial, you get deflection, you get blame, you get ridicule, you get denial, you get every type of lie and bullshit lie, and hiding behind religion to blaming the victim. And that is not a mature masculinity. That is cowardice. That is a New York bullshitter saying anything he'll do to protect himself. And now he's protecting himself again at the expense of everybody who wants the truth about the Epstein files and that tangled web of deception and power. So America, there's a better way, okay? It's hard to challenge your own beliefs, but that's what I'm begging you to do. So let me get back to the difference between Donald Trump and me. I was accused of a sexual assault, and I stood trial. I was held to the standard that is much higher and a much more practical, realistic, and valued standard that we hold in our society to hold people accountable. So I did that willingly. I stood trial in my own defense in a trial by jury in Lee County, Florida, the worst jury my lawyer had ever seen, and I won. I came out not guilty, and I served my time. I paid the price that goes along with those allegations, even though I was found not guilty. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has lived a whole life abusing women, abusing them verbally, attacking them verbally and financially, and in this hanging out in the circles with Jeffrey Epstein. There are photos of him, all the evidence in the world, and we turn a blind eye. This includes a local sheriff, Sheriff Rambosk, of Collier County. He's an honorable man. He's a lifelong servant, and he has honorable intentions. But on this fact, he's wrong. If he supports Donald Trump, then he's turning a blind eye to a pedophile protector. And if you're an American, if you're a Trump supporter, that's what you're doing. At this point, it's up to us to get beyond politics, to get to a deeper level of truth about integrity, about what a person stands for, what they do with their lives, what they do with their mistakes, what they do with their time here on earth. Now, as a result of my experience 10 years ago, I bit my lip. It was in the middle of the Me Too movement. I did what I had to do. It cost me financially. I've been unpaid for the past 10 years. I took care of my mother when no one else would. When they gave her her last rites 6 years ago, I took her out of the nursing home, and I took her home, and 24/7, I provided care for her. I nursed her back to health. I nursed her back to happiness and to a sense of purpose in this world. And in that time, that whole span of time, Donald Trump has been denying, deflecting, ruining lives, and continuing with his bullshit when he had every opportunity throughout his life to look at himself in the mirror and to really come to terms with who he is and what he stands for. So as a result of what I went through, I did what I felt was the honorable thing, and not only did I experience it and defer the gratification of expressing my anger, but I put it into a useful purpose, and I wrote about it. I wrote 4 books. The Woke Evangelical, which takes a larger look at our society and the interrelations of our cultural changes that we go through, our family dynamics, our political dynamics, and looked at the times through my eyes and my circumstance. Now in Lee County, they prosecute liberals, Hispanics, and blacks at a rate much higher than the rest of the nation, as high as 40% higher. So Pam Bondi was the Attorney General at the time, and there is something to this selective prosecution idea. Now, unfortunately, it's being perpetrated by those who are playing victim and crying foul. Donald Trump's private attorney is now at the DOJ. Pam Bondi couldn't tell the truth if it bit her in the face. Same with Kristi Noem. And we're going along with this perpetual lie, perpetual charade to try to protect some sense of patriotism that exists in the ether. It doesn't exist in reality. People, American citizens, are being killed in the streets protesting the violence that they see all around them. This isn't good for our children. We have to come to terms with what we're doing with ourselves. And as a Democrat, we need to go beyond politics and expecting our politicians to make our lives better. That's why in my Woke Evangelical book, I put in a free link to the other books I had written at the time. Well, having no business acumen, that got me nowhere. And my courses were very amateurish, and they didn't have a whole lot to offer to people who want something immediately now. And I understand that. But the books I have written now give you something very tangible. This X-ray of the Spirit can be found on Amazon, as the Woke Evangelical can be found. But this X-ray of the Spirit is the result of me using AI to look at my life and do a forensic analysis on my Woke Evangelical book and my whole biographical background, to look at all the adverse childhood experiences that I had, and it tops every category, from violence in the home to physical violence to sexual abuse, sexual assault, instances of poverty, and all the other childhood experiences that stay with a person their entire lives. But unlike Donald Trump, I spent my entire life learning from the experiences of my life and trying to do something positive with it. The end result is this methodology that helps people through any trauma. If you've lost a child, this methodology can be applied to any circumstance in life where you're stuck in the shittiness of the reality that you think you're stuck in. And it doesn't have to be that way. There's a way to understand your life comprehensively, understand what you need to do to change your narrative, and then methods to help that change occur faster. That's in the X-ray of the Spirit methodology. And I also provided a template for you to help facilitate a better story, a story that advances into an empowering story. For example, voting Trump out of office and returning to a sense of decency and normalcy and integrity that we are sorely lacking. So my contention is that it starts from within on the collective level, but each of us doing our part individually. That's how we get from here to there and create the society we want. If we wait for politicians to do it, they're going to find ways to sabotage us. That means that we don't give up the fight. We continue to fight with everything we have to counter their diabolical means. But we can counter them. We can vote and we can protest and get in the streets and speak truth to power. So I'm urging you, I'm asking you, spend $10 or $20 and buy my X-ray of the Spirit workbook. Do the steps and learn the methods involved, spread the word, give it to somebody who's in crisis. The X-ray of the Spirit can help find unconscious patterns that lead to suicide, that lead to burnout, that lead to divorce. So get a hold of it first, learn to come to terms with these dynamics and become larger than they are before they sabotage your whole life. That's the value of the X-ray of the Spirit, that it uncovers 70% of what goes on the unconscious level, whereas traditional therapy does not. So you're running in circles with traditional therapy. With the X-ray of the Spirit, you get to the root cause of what's going on in your life, and it gives you tangible, concrete steps to change those circumstances in a way that empowers you. Thank you. So this is something we can do together. We can support each other, and we can share stories of our lives and learn from each other's struggles. I hope that you learn from mine. I put my entire life's work into my latest book, The End of Life Wisdom Workbook, that you can find on Amazon now, and it's on my Facebook page. Nancy, the Caregiving RN, endorsed the book as a masterpiece because she sees the value in examining the dynamics as you approach the end stages of life. And to prepare for them in advance makes it so much easier to experience when you're going through it and to survive the aftermath. My family did not survive the aftermath because we didn't have the tools to prepare in advance, and it tore our family apart. I was the solo caregiver to my mother for basically 8 years for that reason, because it had already torn our family apart. And it's normal, but it can be mitigated. The End of Life Wisdom Workbooks helps a family understand each other's points of view and understand the resources that are available, understand what they can do for themselves and their family to preserve their family's legacy, to preserve their own sanity, and to preserve the value of a unified family, which I miss terribly. So please, check out the books, spend $1, read it, give it as a gift to somebody you love, support me. I'm going to be homeless after 10 years of not earning an income. When there is such value in these books, it's not a con, it's a value. And in addition to that value, I have 40 other PDFs that are ready to turn into books. If you want any of those PDFs, I will supply them for you. I will supply a piece of artwork for you, a mandala to meditate on that helps you to focus symbolically on the areas of your life that you feel are fractured or that need strengthening. That's what the X-ray of the spirit methodology can do for you. So check it out on Amazon. If you can't afford the $20, send me a personal note and I'll send you a PDF for free. The important thing is that we be there for each other and support each other and strengthen that collective conscience that stands for something of moral value. So I bless all of you. You know, I pray for Donald Trump. Imagine growing up in his circumstance where you've had everything feeded to you and probably hung over your head. And I feel very sorry for that man. I hope he finds Christ in his heart. I hope he finds every reason to repent and to honor his higher self. And that's what I wish for you. Thanks for this time, and I hope to talk to you soon. Take care, guys.